The golden thread snaps tight against the loom in Susa, 479 BC. Queen Amestris weaves a robe of impossible intricacy, a labor of months intended to comfort her husband, King Xerxes, after his crushing defeat in Greece. But this fabric is not a gift, it is a fuse. When Xerxes returns to his capital, he does not look at the map of the world he failed to conquer. He looks at the women of his own house. The King of Kings demands a prize that cannot be given, turning his gaze toward his own bloodline. The robe, a symbol of royal unity, will soon be soaked in the consequences of a single, silent nod. Why would a ruler with a harem of thousands destroy the sanctity of his own family? And what irreversible price must be paid when a daughter is forced to choose between her father's vanity and her mother's wrath? A gift given in love becomes a warrant for execution. If you enjoyed these dark histories, leave a like and subscribe and comment below where you're listening from. And now, back to the story. The royal road ends at the gate of all nations, but the true border is the heavy curtain of the inner harem. Here, the air is thick with cedar smoke and the dust of unsaid words. Artaynte, daughter of Masistes, and now daughter-in-law to the king, walks the polished stone corridors of Susa. She is no longer merely a niece or a wife. She has been reclassified as a vessel for the king's shifting obsession. The public decrees of the empire stop at these walls. Inside, the law is the king's glance, and every servant is a ledger recording the weight of his attention. Xerxes, bored with the stalled conquest of Greece, turns to conquer the boundaries of his own kin. He approaches her not with a sword, but with a promise. He swears a royal oath, a pledge that by Persian law cannot be broken, to give her whatever her heart desires. It feels like power. It looks like freedom. But in the Persian court, a blank check is a signed confession. He expects her to ask for gold, for cities to govern, or titles for her father. He offers a mercy of abundance to silence the impropriety of his desire. Power given freely is the most dangerous weapon in the room. The dynamic shifts instantly. The king waits, confident in his transaction. The silence stretches, heavy as the limestone columns holding up the roof. Artaynte's eyes do not go to the treasury lists or the maps of satrapies. They drift to the robe, the one Queen Amestris wove with her own hands. The fabric acts as a physical manifest of the queen's devotion, every thread a testament to her loyalty during the war. To wear it is to claim the queen's dignity. It is a violation of hierarchy so steep it induces vertigo. The eunuchs watching from the shadows stop breathing. They know the inventory of the palace. They know this object is strictly forbidden. Xerxes hesitates, a rare crack in the facade of the King of Kings. He knows the cost. He offers cities instead. He offers the gold of Babylon. He offers the command of armies. But Artaynte stands firm. It is a quiet, fatal rebellion. By demanding the robe, she tests the absolute power of the king's word against the absolute terror of the queen. She refuses the mercy of gold for the danger of the cloth. She thinks she is rising in station. She is merely stepping onto the altar. Xerxes hands over the garment. Silk sits heavier than iron on a doomed neck. The year turns on the pivot of the king's birthday, the feast of Taikta. It is the only day in the Persian calendar when the king washes his hair in public ritual and distributes gifts that cannot be refused. But it is also the day he must grant a request that cannot be denied. The great hall of Susa is filled with 15,000 guests, the air heavy with the smoke of frankincense and roasting meat, masking the tension radiating from the high table. Queen Amestris sits in silence. She has seen the robe on Artaynte. She has seen the violation of her labor and her station, but she does not ask for the head of the girl who insulted her. She plays a longer, crueler game. When Xerxes offers the customary boon, Amestris speaks clearly. She demands the wife of Masistes, the mother of the girl, the innocent woman who wove no thread and solicited no favor. She demands her as a possession to do with as she pleases. Xerxes freezes. He understands instantly that the trap he set for Artaynte has snapped shut on his own neck. He knows the custom is binding. To refuse the queen on Taikta is to admit that the king's word is malleable, that the law of the Persians is subject to regret. He looks at the queen, then at the crowded hall of satraps and generals, expecting a show of absolute authority. The preservation of his godlike image requires a human sacrifice. The law of kings allows no backward step. He nods. The guards move not to the harem, but to the house of his brother, Masistes. The transfer of custody is signed in wax. The deed is done before the wine is finished. Desperate to salvage the wreckage of his conscience, Xerxes summons Masistes. This is the trial, not of a criminal, but of a loyal subject. The king stands by a window overlooking the Zagros mountains, refusing to turn around. He issues a command that sounds like madness. Masistes must divorce the wife he loves and marry one of Xerxes' own daughters instead. It is a frantic attempt to rearrange the board, to save his brother from the grief that Xerxes himself has authorized. Masistes stands confused. He asks the simple, dangerous question: why? He speaks of his wife's loyalty, their children, their years of peace. He declines the king's offer. He chooses his past over the king's future. Xerxes turns. This is the moment where the history of the house fractures. He steps forward, his hand raising as if to strike, then stops. His fingers curl into a fist, hovering inches from his brother's chest. He holds his breath, the silence in the room deafening against the noise of the distant feast. He lowers his hand. The hesitation passes. The king returns. "You will not save her," Xerxes says, his voice flat and devoid of the brother who once existed. "And you will not have her." Masistes is dismissed. He rushes home, believing he has only offended the king's pride. He expects a reprimand, perhaps exile. He does not know that the why has already been resolved. The institution of the monarchy protects itself by devouring its own limbs. The price of the king's vanity is not paid by the king. When Masistes arrives at his courtyard, he finds his wife released from the queen's custody. She is alive, but the queen has taken her payment. The nose, the ears, the lips, and the tongue have been surgically removed. She is no longer a face. She is a message carved in living flesh. The discipline Masistes showed in refusing the king has not saved her. It is only guaranteed that he must look upon what remains. Mercy is just a pause before the knife. The courtyard in Susa remains silent, save for the rhythmic dripping of blood onto the pavement. Masistes looks at the woman who was once his wife, now a breathing testament to the queen's surgery. There are no screams. The shock is a cold, anesthetic fog. He does not kill her to end her suffering. He covers her face with a plain linen cloth. This is the wordless rite. He gathers his sons, not for a council of war, but for a departure. The saddles are cinched tight in the dark. The iron bits are cold in the horses' mouths. They move with the precision of men who know they are already dead if they stay. Hope is a map that leads only to the grave. They ride for Bactria. Masistes is the satrap there. The tribes of the east are loyal to him, not the distant king. If he reaches the Zagros passes, he can raise an army that will crack the empire in half. The rebellion is not a shout, but a gallop on the hard-packed dust of the king's highway. Ancient chronicles suggest the speed of their flight was desperate, a race against the sun itself. But the road is long, and the king's reach is absolute. Here lies the hidden truth. Act 1 suggested a domestic tragedy, a father destroying a daughter's innocence through lust. But the excavation of the timeline reveals a colder calculation. Xerxes did not just fail to save his sister-in-law. He dispatched his army after his brother almost immediately. He did not wait for a revolt, he ensured one. The mutilation was not just the queen's jealousy, it was the king's provocation. By forcing Masistes to run, Xerxes justified the slaughter of his own bloodline. The king's cavalry overtakes the fugitives before they reach the safety of the Bactrish lands. There is no trial, there is no request for surrender. The sword arms of the immortals do not hesitate for royal blood. Masistes, his sons, and his entire retinue are cut down on the open road. The dust drinks the blood of the Achaemenid line just as easily as it drinks the rain. The threat is neutralized not by diplomacy, but by total massacre. The price was not one woman's beauty. It was the complete excision of a rival branch of the dynasty. The robe was just the first domino in a fratricide. A dead brother cannot claim the throne. The wind sweeping down from the Zagros mountains buries the blood on the Bactrian road within hours. There are no markers raised for Masistes. In Persepolis, the stone carvers receive quiet orders. They do not strike the chisel to create, they strike to erase. Reliefs that might have depicted the brother of the king are left smooth or altered to show generic courtiers. The The royal annals, usually meticulous in their accounting of grain and silver, contain a sudden, gaping white space where a satrap's tribute should be. The bureaucracy of the empire functions perfectly to process the deletion. The palace of Susa returns to its rhythm. The eunuchs glide silently on soft shoes. The feast is over. The heavy curtains are drawn. But the silence is different now. It is the silence of a house that has eaten its own children. Artaynte, the girl who reached for power by reaching for a robe, dissolves into the gray mist of undocumented history. We do not know when she died. We do not know where she was buried. She is neither wife nor daughter now. She is a cautionary void, a blank entry in the harem manifest. And what of the robe, the object from Act 1 that started the clock? It is never mentioned again. It likely sat in the darkness of a cedar chest, the gold thread tarnishing, the purple dye fading in the stagnant air. It was woven to comfort a king. It served only to strangle a dynasty. The loom sits empty in the queen's chambers. The shuttle does not move. The pattern is broken. The gift was never truly owned by anyone. It was merely the bait in a trap set by the institution itself. Xerxes remains on the throne for 14 more years. He builds grander gates and taller columns, trying to outbuild the memory of his failures in Greece and the carnage in his own home. But the foundation is cracked. The loyalty of the court is now just the synchronized movement of terrified men. When Xerxes eventually dies, murdered in his sleep by his own commander, Artaynte, the knife that opens his throat is wielded by a man who watched what happened to Masistes. The lesson the king taught was learned too well. Loyalty is a weakness, and preemptive violence is the only security. The clay tablets crumble, the silk rots. The names are forgotten. All that remains is the echo of a door closing, locking the secrets of the harem inside forever. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like. History remembers the kings, but it forgets the knives they hold.